They tried to take him down, they called him a monster, a dictator. Yet, years later, Rodrigo Duterte is still one of the most talked about political figures not just in the Philippines but around the world. Why? The real story might shock you. Politics usually eats people alive. One mistake and you're out, forgotten. But not Duterte. He didn't just survive politics, he broke it. Today we're digging deep into how Duterte started, why he exploded into fame, and why even after stepping down, his name still shakes rooms in Manila, Washington, and even Beijing. And believe me, the answers are not what you expect. In most countries, politicians rise through perfect resumes, law school, corporate connections, carefully cleaned public images. But Duterte? He bulldozed through all that. No polish, no filter, no fear. The problem was simple. The Philippines was tired. Tired of crime, tired of corruption, tired of fake promises. People didn't want another soft-spoken, over-promising leader. They wanted a fighter, and that's exactly what they got, and maybe even more than they bargained for. Let's roll the clock back. Before the world knew Duterte as the Punisher or strongman, he was just the mayor of Davao City. But not just any mayor. Davao wasn't some sleepy town. It was a war zone in the 1980s. Bombings, kidnappings, gangs. At one point it was called the murder capital of the Philippines. Duterte walked right into that fire. And instead of putting on a suit and giving pretty speeches, he did something crazy. He fought back. Hard. He gave brutal orders. If you see a criminal resisting arrest, he told police, shoot to kill. People were stunned. Some cheered. Some were horrified. But guess what happened? The crime rates in Davao dropped. Not a little, massively. Families who once locked themselves indoors at night were now walking the streets freely. Business owners started opening shops without fear of being extorted. Sure, the human rights groups started raising alarms. Extrajudicial killings. Vigilante justice. And maybe they were right, maybe it was too far. But for people living in constant fear, Duterte was a savior. This Wild West style of politics wasn't supposed to work on a national level though. The big cities, the elites, the international media, they weren't going to let a small-town mayor take over the whole country. Right? Wrong. By 2016, Rodrigo Duterte launched a presidential campaign, and it wasn't polished. No fancy posters, no Hollywood-level ads, just raw, fiery speeches. He promised three things: destroy drugs, destroy corruption, and crush criminals. He didn't hide his language either, yo. He said, if you are involved in drugs, your days are numbered. He said it on TV, over and over. While other candidates were smiling and sugarcoating, Duterte was basically declaring war. And that hit people deep. Because drug problems in the Philippines weren't just statistics. They were real, every street corner, every neighborhood. Everyone knew someone who got pulled into it. While other candidates were playing politics, Duterte was speaking the language of pain and anger. He wasn't just offering policies, he was offering revenge. The country handed him a landslide victory. When Duterte took office, it was like setting off a bomb. Within weeks, thousands of suspected drug users and dealers were either arrested or dead. Police operations were in full swing. Bodies started showing up in alleys. Some with cardboard signs on them. Drug pusher, do not emulate. International news exploded. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. They called Duterte the Punisher. They called him a human rights disaster. But at home, his approval ratings stayed sky high. Over 80% even after the killings. Why? Because for many Filipinos, the fear of crime finally started fading. Parents started letting kids walk home from school again. Neighborhoods that used to be no-go zones were becoming normal. To millions of people, Duterte wasn't a tyrant. He was the answer. Of course, the controversies didn't stop. Duterte cursed out President Obama once. He made jokes that outraged feminists. He aligned closer to China despite tensions in the South China Sea. Every time he made headlines for the wrong reasons, the world expected his downfall. But every time something crazy happened, his approval went up. How? Because every controversy made him look more real, more human, more against the system. While polished politicians were speaking carefully, Duterte was being brutally honest, for better or worse. And that honesty, raw, ugly, fearless, was something the public craved. He wasn't perfect, he wasn't clean, but he wasn't fake. And in politics, sometimes being real beats being right. Today, Duterte is no longer president. His daughter, Sara Duterte, is now the vice president. His influence is still everywhere. Whether you love him or hate him, Duterte's story isn't just about a man. It's about what people will trade for security. It's about how broken systems create desperate voters. And it's about how one angry mayor shook the world without pretending to be anything other than himself. Rodrigo Duterte didn't win by accident. He rose because he matched the anger, the fear, and the hunger for change that millions of Filipinos felt deep inside. He gave them action instead of promises. And for that, history will never forget his name. Hit subscribe if you want the real stories no one else is telling.